Welcome. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I'm really excited to share the content I'm about to share for a lot of different reasons. So before I jump in, I just want to ask if you're watching this live or on the replay, do me a favor, let me know where you're watching from. I kind of get excited knowing like where people are connecting from, where I'm connecting with people from. So really looking forward to knowing where you are and sharing this with you. So today's topic is different than what most coaches and consultants talk about. It's probably radically different than what most business coaches these days talk about. And let me tell you why I feel like it is different and why I feel like a lot of what I talk about is not the same stuff that other business coaches talk about. By the way, Robert, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. Good to see you here. So here's why I feel like so much of what I talk about is different than most business coaches and consultants. And if it sounds like I'm disparaging some other coaches and some other consultants, I probably am. You know, I'm radically frustrated a lot of the coaching, the consulting that goes on today, because here's what I think happens in the world. There's a lot of people out there who figured out like one part of an equation and they don't have what I call mastery in a subject so that they can actually coach and teach and really help people move forward. Merlin, thanks for being here, man. Linda, so good to see you. Appreciate you both being here. And here's when I say mastery, here's what I mean. There's really 5 levels of learning. The first one is when you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. Go to any business conference and you can tell who's unconsciously incompetent. They're willing to give advice about anything. They're at the beginning of the Dunning-Kruger curve. They're dangerous. Then there's conscious competence. Now you've gone from unconscious incompetence where you didn't know what you didn't know. Now you're consciously competent. Then you go to unconscious competence, and then you go to conscious incompetence. Then I'm screwing this up completely. There's four levels of learning, or 5 levels of learning. It goes from unconscious incompetence all the way to mastery. And most coaches out there today have not achieved a level of mastery. And so they're coaching in a way that is challenging. I know this because we get a lot of these people coming into our program. We talk to a lot of people who have been coached in a way that was challenging before. And that's why, as a coach, I talk about things. Yeah, thanks, Merlin, for relating there. That was brutal. That's why, as a coach, I talk about a lot of things that other coaches, other consultants don't talk about. In fact, when you look at predictability in your business, talking about predictability in your business is not something that a lot of coaches and consultants will talk about. And here's why. When you use the word predictability, here's what a lot of entrepreneurs hear. A lot of entrepreneurs hear boring. A lot of entrepreneurs hear, I'm going to have a meeting on my schedule every week. A lot of entrepreneurs hear, predictability is frustrating. I want things to be new and fresh and exciting. And predictability does not sound like freedom. And when you look at us as entrepreneurs, a lot of the reason that we went into entrepreneurship or are entrepreneurs is to create a level of freedom for ourselves. I always joke with people that entrepreneurship, is that quest for freedom where you leave the 9 to 5 working for someone else so you can work from 9 to 9, 7 days a week, 365 days a week or year to work for yourself and call it freedom. But in a lot of ways, that joke is actually very true. That's what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs in a quest for freedom. They end up doing everything. They end up doing all of it. And one of the reasons is because your business isn't predictable. And in our organization, in our coaching models, we talk about predictable growth. We talked about predictable system. We talk about having a predictable planning process where what is happening in the business is predictable. And here's why. There's really 3 reasons why this is so incredibly important. So number 1, I'm going to go through these, summarize, and I'm going to go a little in depth. Number 1 is, as a entrepreneur, your job is to assign the limited amount of resources in your business to get the maximum result. And the more predictable things are, the more predictable the next outcome is, the faster you get there. The second reason why this is so important is when things are predictable in your business, you actually understand what you need. You understand whether you need knowledge or people or systems. You understand when you're delegating. Are you going to delegate to one of the 4 things you delegate to? We always delegate to one of 4 things. We delegate to, it's on my wall, process, project, person, or policy. When we know what's coming next, we can properly delegate what's going on. And then the third reason is when things are predictable, you can get your team out in front of you. I hear things from entrepreneurs all the time, like my team doesn't take initiative. I'm always asking questions. I feel overwhelmed. Well, a lot of the reason is your team doesn't know where you're going. You haven't made things predictable for them. So let's talk about how we improve all three of these situations. So first, when we look at resources, if you look at, and this is statistic bothers people, but I want you to know that it's absolutely true. We've tested it. We talk to hundreds of entrepreneurs every single month, and less than 1% have a clear, written, strategic plan that everyone on the team understands. I'm going to say that one more time. Less than 1% of entrepreneurial businesses have a clear, written, strategic plan that everyone on the team understands. And so what does that mean? When you look at your job as an entrepreneur is to take the limited resources you have and assign them in the business in a way that's going to create maximum growth. Well, when you don't know where the business is going, you are literally guessing on a day-by-day, minute-by-minute basis as to what you're going to do next. This can be anxiety provoking and frustrating and exhausting. And the reason I believe most entrepreneurs do this is they don't understand how simple and really how realistic and how predictable the solution is. If you have a system to create a strategic plan in your business, and everyone in the business understands that strategic plan, and they all understand where they're going, and they all understand their role, then you are going to create massive momentum around that strategic plan. And all of a sudden, it is that much easier for you to take the resources you have, assign them to the right places to get the maximum result, because you've already stated where you're going to go. You've already clarified the destination. You have a clear outcome in the form of your strategic plan. So now you know exactly where to put those resources so that the business will grow. This changes things for you as an entrepreneur. It cuts down on decision-making fatigue. It cuts down on the frustration you have as an entrepreneur. It cuts down on what we've all done, the mistakes we've all made, where we take the limited resources we have and we put them into a project or an outcome. We put them into what we think is going to move the business forward. We're excited about it. We think it's going to work. We pull it off. We make the project happen. And then nothing happens in our business. It is one of the biggest letdowns that you can have as an entrepreneur, to burn resources and time and effort and energy and focus and not get a result. Well, when you create predictability through the creation of a strategic plan, that changes. You actually know where you should put those resources for maximum forward progress. Now, the second area, when you understanding what you need in the business. I said earlier, you'll know whether you need knowledge or people or systems. Here's why. When you create a forward-looking plan, a strategic plan that says, I get up every morning, I go into the future, I create this new reality, I come back to the present, and I demand it becomes real, but I create a strategic plan from the present all the way to that reality, so we know all the steps in between. And if me and my team know the steps in between, then I know what I need to do in the business. I know what the business needs. I know whether we need knowledge or people or systems or processes in order to achieve the goal that we've already spelled out. And I can work with my team to say, how do we delegate this? How do we make sure that this happens? How do we create this outcome here? Are we going to create a new process in the business that runs over and over again? Are we going to have a project where we get this done so that we create a new outcome in the business? Are we going to have a person in the business who goes and gets this done? Or do we need a new person? Do we need to change somebody's job description? Do we need to bring somebody new in? Or are we going to create a policy around making sure this gets done the same way forward over and over again? This is huge in a business. When you understand what you need, you can bring in the right resources. You can delegate to the right outcome. You can delegate in the right way so that, again, you create that massive forward momentum in your business. And now here's the big one, the third one. The third one is how having predictability in your business completely changes how you work with your team. This one is so important. It's so crucial because, when I talk to entrepreneurs who have teams, the spectrum of feedback that I get is all over the place, but honestly, the vast majority of it is not positive. The vast majority of it is entrepreneurs who say things like, well, I hired somebody and it didn't work out, or I have a team right now and I'm really frustrated, or I just don't know how to get them to all stop bothering me. I hired 4 people and now I want to go back to doing it all myself. I call that the quitting fantasy. It's as we scale our business, we hire people, we don't really know where we're going. We don't have a strategic plan. We bring in people to help us with the tactical issues every day. And then we get up one morning and it just all feels overwhelming because we've been making it all happen. There's no plan in place for anybody to follow. We are the plan. We are that system that makes sure everybody's going in the right direction. And that is exhausting as an entrepreneur. That knocks the wind out of you as an entrepreneur. And so when I look at what changes when you have a strategic plan, check out how your relationship with your team changes. When you have a strategic plan where you've told them where you're going, now your team can get up every day and get out in front of you. See, if you don't have a strategic plan, you will always be the biggest bottleneck in the business. If you don't have a strategic plan, your team will always have to ask you what they need to do next. If you don't have a strategic plan, you are going to get killed by God minutes and interruptions. And hey, can you check on this? We call it transactional management. It's where you tell people what to do. You check that it got done and you tell them what to do again. And you know what you do next? You check that it got done and you tell them what to do. And then you check that it got done and you tell them what to do. It's exhausting. We hear it in the dialogue from entrepreneurs. They say things like, I just keep having to repeat myself to my team, telling them the same thing over and over again. Well, here's the anecdote for this incredibly uncomfortable situation is you create a strategic plan that shows you and your team where you're going. You make sure it's a real strategic plan because it's in writing. Everyone understands it. Everyone has a copy and they know their role. They know what they're doing to pull this off. And what happens when you do that is immediately you get better ROI off of every penny you're paying your team. If I told you that tomorrow, you could increase the return on investment you're getting on your team by 20, 30, 40, 50, as much as 100%. You could double the productivity of your team by making things predictable and showing them where you're going. I want you to know we do this all the time. We show entrepreneurs how to do exactly that. And often they get more than double the productivity, more than double the impact, more than double the revenue, the income from just having a strategic plan. I liken it to an entire sports team being told to go out in the field without a play, without knowing who they're playing against, without knowing whether it's offense or defense, without knowing what they're doing next. That's what it's like working in an entrepreneurial business without a strategic plan. Everyone has to ask the coach every time they do anything, what is the next move we make? Well, if you eliminate that issue, that challenge by putting a strategic plan in place, your team now can get out in front of you and you get a better ROI. And here's the big one. You don't just keep A players, you attract A players. You attract people who are going to come into your business and help you explode what you're doing, help you help more people, help you make a bigger impact. And they're going to be excited about it because you know what A players want? A players want a target they can knock down. They want a plan to get there and they want to be able to execute like crazy so they can show you how amazing they are. And if you bring in a whole team of A players, you have to have a strategic plan or they will come in one side of your company and go right out the other. Because A players will not stand for losing. A players will not give into the pain of not knowing what to do next. A players will not put up with having to ask you a whole bunch of questions for them to be able to perform. They want to be able to go out and show you, themselves, and the world how amazing they are. And when you give them the destination in the form of a strategic plan, it changes everything. So I've only covered today 3 areas where predictability in your business is going to change everything. The first one is in how you assign resources as a CEO. It's one of the most important things that you do as the person running the business. The second one is in understanding what you need next. Do you need knowledge, people, systems, or are you going to delegate to a process, project, person, or a policy? And then the last thing that I shared was what this does to your team. The fact that you can go from having a team that is performing at a certain level and then radically increase the return on investment you're getting with that team by just making things predictable, by just giving them the clarity of a strategic plan. It changes everything in your business. So I want to now circle back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this and what I had mentioned as far as why we as entrepreneurs don't love predictability, why we as entrepreneurs sometimes fight predictability. And the reason is that as entrepreneurs, we feel like predictability takes away our freedom. But the reality is, and I just want you to really think about this and let this wash over you. The more predictable your business is, the more you know where to assign resources, the more you understand what you need next, the more your team has clarity as to what they're doing, that predictability actually creates freedom. I'm going to restate that in another way, because as entrepreneurs, we fight predictability because it feels like a lack of freedom. Spontaneity feels like new. We want freedom. We want it to be new and next. But when we create predictability in our business, because we're the person in charge, because we're the person running the business, because we're the person with the vision, when we make things predictable for our team, we buy freedom for ourselves. We create freedom in our business for ourselves. You know, the most dramatic example of this for me came a couple years ago, not last year, but the year before. my mom passed away towards the end of the year. And it was a shock. My family was in Hawaii. We got a phone call that my mom had a stroke. We had to fly back to California. It was incredibly difficult and traumatic, and something I spent a lot of time in therapy working through. And when that happened, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to be on huddles. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to go process what had happened with my mom. I was one of those people who had convinced themselves that their parent would never die. I was actually operating under the delusion that nothing would ever happen to my mom. And so what it did, it completely reset my entire reality. It knocked me backwards. And Merlin, thank you. Somebody just made the comment. So sorry. And I appreciate that. But here's what I can tell you that predictability bought for me. The day after my mom passed away, I called Haley, who helps us run our company. And I told her I'm taking some time off. And she said, how long? I said, I don't know. It's going to be at least the next 6 weeks, but it'll probably be longer. And I just don't know. I need to process. I need some space. I don't want to think right now. I don't want to be in huddles right now. I don't want to be in meetings right now. I just need to like reconcile what's happened in my life. And honestly, losing my mom, I want to like reframe and understand who I really am. This has been significant for me. And here's what's interesting. I didn't just take 6 weeks off. I think I took more than 8 weeks off. And when I say off, I mean with barely a check-in. I didn't answer emails. I didn't answer Voxers. I think Haley might have reached out a couple of times via text with really quick things that I handled, but I wasn't on a call. I wasn't in communication. I didn't do anything for that entire time period. I had the confidence that my business was fine because we'd already created a strategic plan. And there's a system in my business to renew that strategic plan over and over again so that we continue to create forward momentum. And I knew that I had to have that time to reconcile what had happened in my life, but I also was able to do it with the confidence and with the clarity that I knew my team was going to be able to continue the impact of what we were doing. They were going to continue to be able to help our members. They were going to be able to continue to move things forward and to make things happen for us. And that gave me the confidence to really separate and process and understand what had happened and grieve my mother and remember her life and remember all the amazing lessons that I learned from her. And that was one of the greatest gifts I think I've ever had in my entire life, was having that time and that space where I could process in a way that most people I know who've lost a parent did not have the opportunity to process. And that came from the predictability that I built into my business. And I want you to have the exact same thing. And so I think somebody over here in the comments asked earlier about how can I create a strategic plan? Well, I want you to know our team has been hard at work at exactly a strategic planning product. And we are actually on a wait list right now. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link here. If you go to sharfen.com/standby in just the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a webinar, a presentation on strategic planning. It's probably going to be about 90 minutes, and I'm going to show you exactly what a strategic plan means in business, what it has done for some of our members. I'm going to give you some of the real reasons you need a strategic plan, but I'm also going to give you the strategy and tactics you can use walking away from that webinar to put a plan together that is going to radically improve your business. And I'll also give you the opportunity to work with us. So if you're interested in creating a strategic plan, go to sharfen.com/standby and come to the webinar. I'm sure there will be a replay, and let me show you how we've helped companies implement a planning process, create a strategic plan, and completely and totally change the trajectory of their business. And I want to do the same thing for you, and I want to help you have that same outcome, because here's what I want you to know of being an entrepreneur. If you're new at this, or you haven't run a large organization yet, or you haven't had the opportunity to feel fully and totally supported by a team, here's what I want you to know. When you have a plan in place, and when you have a team that supports you, and when you have the freedom of predictability in your business, that is when you are going to have those inspirations and insights that cause those massive forward leaps forward, where you take quantum leaps in growth, and then you get back to predictability and the business grows again. But when you have that space, this is the paradox. When the business is predictable, that's when you can go out and have the insight and the creativity to go out and change the world. And that predictability is caused is provided by a simple strategic plan that will change the business for you, for your team, and for everyone that interacts with you. You will be an infinitely better business than you are today once things are more predictable and you have a plan. Go to scharfen.com/standby. Love to connect with you. I'd love to have you on our webinar. And for everybody who was here today, Gabrielle, Sean, so good to see you, dude. Melissa, I hope you're with Sean. I'm just saying hi too. Merlin, thanks for being here, brother. I think this is a couple of weeks that you've been here with me. Linda, Alex, thank you all for being here. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you right around this same time next week.